All of these are bad ideas, but it doesn't stop artists like you from making them. And as you watch me draw this today, learn why, as a veteran art freelancer for the last 10 years who's been able to scale their business upwards of $5,000 a month, why you should never do these because they are the kiss of death for your art commissions business. Because you will not make it if you're doing these. Oh man, I can't believe that this happens so frequently. I have seen this from every single location, from private DMs to emails to public posts to subreddits to Discord servers. And oh man, let me just ask you this. What do you do when somebody cannot afford you? What do you say back to them, all right? Because one of the things that I tend to find so many artists do is that they are just rude, mean, and nasty to people who can't afford them. And look, let me just say this first off. If you've gone into that position and you're right there right now, that's not a bad thing. The fact that you have earned a no is a good thing. That means that you respect yourself. That means that you have some standards. That means you have some integrity, my friend. And just to be honest, if you're like, oh, I get no's and therefore that's a bad thing, that's not. Sales doesn't work like that. You should not be getting a yes all the time unless you are just ridiculously cheap. But if a client says no to you, listen, don't be rude to them. I've heard so many accounts and seen so many accounts too where people will be like, oh, I would never do that. Just get out of here. No way. That's not happening. Are you crazy? I would never work for that amount. Like, I've seen so many artists go off on potential clients just because of the fact that they can't afford them. And look, y'all, you gotta understand that for what it is. That's immature and it's just stupid, because I'm gonna tell you from experience here, I've had people say no to me and then come back to me when they have another artist lined up that it fell through, or they just didn't like working with somebody, and they come back to me and they're like, Sean, oh my God, like this person was terrible. Can you please help me out? I totally understand your pricing and I'm there for it. And you don't know when that person's going to come back. You also don't know how connected they are, but listen, they have their budget, they have what they're willing to spend or not spend, and you may or may not fall within that, and that's okay. And that's not anything to blame them for. You shouldn't shame them, guilt them for it. That is not okay to do. But this is so prevalent, and it's crazy to me. Why would you do that? Because you also don't understand how many people they might know and they might be connected to, and they might just put you out on blast. Do you really want that? Have you ever seen this or know anybody that's done this? Because this is just ludicrous. Now, as a true creative, as somebody that's got great visions, great ideas, and you've got that spirit of collaboration, you want to work with somebody, you want to bring their ideas to life, right? One of the most common conflicts that I see come up all the time is that you and your client are going to be on slightly different pages when it comes to certain aspects of the artwork. And what this tends to evolve itself into is, and let me ask you, have you ever argued with a client? Have you ever told them that they're wrong? And I'm just going to be very honest with you here. There are many times that I have worked with a client where my idea was far superior to theirs. The way that I thought the lighting could be, the way that I thought this character looked, the way that this aspect of the artwork. And listen, regardless of what they thought, 100% as the artist here, as the creative, as the professional, I was right. However, though, there's the problem, and I see this come up all the time. You should never ever, even though I felt this way, you should never tell your client that they're wrong, okay? And so that just boils it down to the fact that, like, listen, you are really in the trenches of this one, because when you really get down into it, you're the one in the trenches. You're the one who's invested into this. And even though a client has invested money into this, you have far over invested into this compared to them. All they did was shoved out some money, and then you have to be the one who's in the thick of this all the time for hours and hours and hours toiling away. So then I found that kind of boils down to is that you have a lot of emotional investment into this. And so what that does is it tends to cloud your judgment. And I've almost had this type of a situation, but I really don't understand why people would want to argue with their client, because what is that going to produce? I've seen so many artists who will just straight up tell their client that they're wrong. No, it doesn't look good like that. No, you shouldn't do that. And look, we all get that feedback once in a while. That's dissatisfactory. Here's my best practice for you. Do not respond to bad feedback for at least an hour. Just cool off, take some time off, take another hour if you need to, okay? But just don't respond to it for like an hour or two. Because real talk, my first reaction is like, no way, you're wrong, it's a bad idea, I don't like that, you don't know what you're talking about. I just go into full on brat mode. But don't tell your client that they're wrong just because you don't like it. Remember, they commissioned you in order to make their piece for them. So the client is king, y'all. Now, quick caveat to that though, if they are wholly wrong about something, then definitely tell them, but do it in a professional way. Do it in a way that's kind. Do it in a way that's going to serve the relationship between you two, because you need to be in the spirit of collaboration. Y'all got to really wordsmith this really well so that you're not rude, you're not dismissive, and that you're not coming off like you're just a stubborn little brat know-it-all. Have you ever done this? Now, right when you actually get that client, right when you actually start that project, right when you're first conversing a little bit, and we'll talk about why that tends to go down the toilet soon too. But when you're first starting to talk things out and you're getting ideas about what they want, they're probably going to send you some references, right? They're going to send you some images. They're going to send you something that inspired their vision, or it's something that's very specific to what they want. And this next practice entails, I would say, one of the most limiting factors that you could ever go off. If you are only going to use the references that are supplied by that client, you are definitely not going to be as successful as you could. Because here's the thing and here's the problem. You just need to respect and delineate the roles here, okay? Your client, the commissioner, is the person who has an idea, but you are the creative professional. So then therefore, what you want to do and know and understand is that you can't just work off of what they want, because just real talk, they don't know what they want. They don't understand this. They don't understand the language of art. They don't understand how to create this stuff. They don't understand possibilities. And so for you, my friend, what I want to encourage you just to remember all the time is that it is your duty, nay, your obligation, to make sure that you bring an even better version of what that client wants. One of the things that I very frequently feel and I convey to people is that my clients don't know what the best version of their artwork is until I give it to them. And that's just because I really powerfully believe this, is that when you are in that spirit of collaboration, when you're working with somebody, and when you are really putting your creative efforts, your best creative efforts, and we'll talk about how people screw that up too. When you're doing all of that, you are going to produce a version that is far more powerfully compelling, more interesting than anything that they could have thought of, because guess what? They're not an artist. They're not in this business like you are. And so just as a great general practice for you, if you're just doing a single character, y'all, I would never start any type of an artwork with less than 15 to 20 references. And on there, the best practice that I found, I practice, and I advise people to do, and I make them implement it, especially if they're my student or if they're my mentorship, I would have at least 3 types of references. I would have live photos, I would have 3D models, and then I would have other artworks on there. If you are too heavily into one of those, then that's why you're not being successful. And just to be real about this, if you're ever going to produce something that you're not proud of, this is always where it comes down to, and I can cite this 110% of the time, it is from your reference collection or your lazy lack thereof. But for you, definitely don't rely on only what the client gives you, and no, you don't have to ask their permission on every single inspiration that you have. Let you be the person that will show them, and if they want to change the direction too, if they don't like it, then give them the other option too. How's all that sound? All right, so for you who maybe you're just starting out, maybe you're trying to grow, maybe you're trying to build. Listen, there are so many sources of information on how to do this. There are so many people. Like, do you even know artists right now that are in commission spheres that you want to be in, right? Do you know people? Maybe you got some friends right now who are like, hey man, maybe you should do this. Oh, you should do that. Oh, you should use this, or you should use that. Here's the thing that I have very commonly found, and this tends to be a really big issue and a reason why people don't start and they don't grow and they don't ever really sustain themselves on this, is that they tend to listen to people's advice that don't have the results that they want. And so like one of the things that I kind of found, and this is a really hard truth, is that if I go ahead and I look up art commissions here on YouTube, okay, the most popular videos are put up by the people that have the most pitiful results and the most pitiful pricing. And I'm not shading anybody by saying that. I'm just giving you the honest results that I have found here. So whenever I watch an art commissions video, the first thing that I do is I literally go into their description and I try and find the social media, and then I try and find every single one of their art pricings. Inevitably, they always have it up. They always have some bad practices, and most of them can barely even break $75. And I just want to ask you, like, is that really what you want? And so this is one of my biggest reasons why I started to make my kind of content for you right here. And listen, if you want real actionable advice on how to actually do this, how to actually succeed, how to not need a following and everything, please go and hit that like and subscribe. And listen, if this is helping you and you know somebody else that this would help, please share it with them, because y'all, I am not about gatekeeping public information that you should know so that we can all succeed. Because if we're all all doing well, then it will elevate the entire art community, and that's what I'm about. And then that also bridges itself into like, do you know people who aren't even into art who are like, oh, you should do this, you should sell here, you should do this. Oh, well, you shouldn't do that work, you should do this work up over here. And like, you will even find this amongst like parents and family members and teachers that don't even do what you are even remotely interested in. And yet you think that somehow following their advice from a person who's living the life that you don't want to live, who's not getting the thing that you want, is somehow going to lead you to success? You see where we're going with this one? So y'all really carefully vet your sources of information, vet the people that you want, because I've been able to scale my pricing from $30 all the way up to $1,500. And you can do it too if you just follow these simple advices like I give in my videos. And I'm not the only one. There's plenty of other people out there, because whomever's advice you're following, just so you know, you're setting yourself up to only get at max what they're able to get, and probably less. Now, on the topic of pricing here too, and what you're going to be able to get and what you're currently getting right now, let me just ask you, how do you feel about your current pricing? How do you feel about your current results? And how do you feel about your current prospects right now? And how does that translate into your artwork? And again, I'm coming from the place of when I first started getting art commissions, I started mine at $35. Yes, $35. That is no exaggerated lie. I literally still have my commission sheet from back when I used to do it, and I don't do that anymore, obviously. But when I first started out, that was it. And I can tell you that when you're first starting out, I give you permission right now. You can go ahead and take a cheapo. You can take 1 to 3 of them, and then you got to start to bump up and respect yourself more than that. But once you're starting out here, what this tends to kind of bridge itself into, and a really fatal practice that I see, because I honestly used to feel it a little bit too, is I used to just think about I only had to do the bare minimum for what I was getting paid. And this especially wraps itself into your pricing, and why I really urge you to go ahead and reconsider everything that you're doing about this. Just to be honest with you, if you are taking really cheap artworks, you are not putting your best into it. And I know that from personal experience, because when I was making $35 to $50 on my art commissions, I was definitely starting to evaluate my time versus my efforts. And I would say things like, oh, I've been working so long on this one. I'm working 8 to 12 hours on this piece right here, and I only get paid enough to like go out to dinner by myself. I can't even take somebody else out with me. And this is just not worth it. Have you ever felt this way too? Are you ever like kind of evaluating your time spent on that artwork versus like what you could do at your full-time job or just in another career path? And if you're considering art commissions as a career path, we'll talk about that too today. But if you, my friend, are only going to produce to the bare minimum of what you've been paid, that is a vicious cycle that you are starting. And I'm going to tell you straight up that you will never ascend from here. You will not get more clients. You will not get better clients. You will not get more pricing either. And that's all just due to this simple fact. You are not working to your best potential to bring about all of those things that you want. So for me, even when I was getting really stupidly low, disrespectfully low pricing, I would think to myself, okay, I'm making $35. What does a $50 commission look like? What does a $75 commission look like? What does a $100 commission look like? And then when I would get those, I would say, okay, what does a $200 commission look like? And then I would work to that. And then, okay, what does a $300 commission look like? What does a $500 commission look like? What does a $1,000 commission look like? And by doing that, what that's been able to do, and what that will do for you too, is I've been able to get those types of clients because of the fact that I don't work towards what I'm paid. I'm working towards bringing about my potential. And that's what you want to do too, friend, all right? It's not just about the business end of it, y'all. It is also about the artistic end of it for you, and also having some artistic integrity. How's that sound? And look, tell me down below, like, have you ever done this? Have you ever worked at the bare minimum of only what you were paid for? And it's also because of that reason that, like, I totally do not recommend you should not do sketches. You should not do incomplete works, because there's no compelling future in there. You can't use it to get more clients. And just to be honest, if you're only going to attract people that are at the lowest of your price points, you're never going to get your highest. Now, as a quick caveat to this discussion I'm about to have with you, let me just say this, is that most certainly, art commissions are not for everybody. It's not the only way that you can bring in an income from your artwork, okay? That being well said though, I see this complaint so much and from so many different people. And it revolves around the fact that, let me just ask you this, do you feel like you are limited in your creativity because of what your clients ask? I can only do this, I can only do that, I have to do it like this, I have to do it like that. And what I tend to find is that that produces honestly the worst, most dissatisfactory results that you're ever going to achieve. And one of the biggest traps here is that you're going to feel boxed in by your client. And let me again just stress this to you, is that you're the creative professional, you're the artistic visionary here, okay? Your client supplied you with the idea, but now it is your job to go ahead and bring that to its best potential. But nonetheless, it is not a constraint on your creativity. You thinking that is going to talk you out of doing it. It's going to talk you out of doing your best work. It's going to talk you out of you actually sustaining yourself. Artists tend to suffer from, and I say this lovingly, but we tend to suffer from special snowflake syndrome, where we're like, we only want to do certain things and we only want to do it like that. And all of a sudden, like, we turn into Veruca Salt from like Willy Wonka, and we're like, I only want to do my artwork in my way, and my vision and my version is best than yours. So if you're gonna have that attitude though, like, you just gotta call it for what it is. Like, you're just acting like a brat. And then also, I just wanna let you know that according to like art psychology and actual research on this, is that actually constraint is really great for creativity. This is also why, by the way, that a lot of artists start to like get really frustrated in like art school or with art assignments, or just take an art class. People be like, oh, this is so limiting. But it's like, no, it's not, because it's still you. It's still your authenticity. It's still your creativity. You still have some type of an umbrella to work under. And so what I want to encourage you to think about, friend, is that it's not boxing in your creativity, because realistically, the only person that can ever box in your creativity is you, if you don't let it go and flow, if you don't actually unleash that right there. So it is 100% your duty and obligation as the commissioned artist to bring about the best version of that. And here's the key point. Think about how you can work within those constraints to go ahead and bring out the most flourishing version of that. Have you ever thought of it like that? Because this will be a game changer for you. All right, so here's a wholly extremely prevalent issue that I see all the time, and it's one of the main reasons why people actually never grow, they never go anywhere, and honestly, the pricing doesn't go anywhere either. And it has to do with what you're doing before you start working together with clients. And so one of the worst things that I learned, especially if you are, hear me out right now, if you have a pricing sheet, if you have an artistry account, if you have a Google form or some sheet or some cold email that people are just supposed to send you, and if you're doing all those practices and then that's all it takes for somebody to commit to you, I just want to call it for what it is, y'all, but that's just artistic prostitution. You're just having somebody just drive up to you and be like, hey, baby, how much for a character? And you're like, here you go. And then you throw out a number, and then you hop in the car and drive away with them, and then you do the job. And that's not ever going to serve you well. And the reason why, as I've learned this from my personal practices over the last decade, is simply because of the fact is that you don't get a chance to know your client. And one of the things I would never do, and I never ever do this ever, is I never ever commit to a client before we have a discussion. And this should be a very detailed conversation, by the way, about the project, about the details, about what their vision is, about what their possibilities are with this one. Reasons why this works so well and why this has allowed me to get what I got is that first and foremost, it allows me to vet my clients, all right? Y'all do not ever put enough power into this one, because we tend to act really desperate as artists. We're like, oh my God, I'm so desperate. I just need money. I'll take anybody. Who you got? Anybody, I'll take you. And if you're doing that right there, just to be honest, you're never going to succeed off of desperation. By doing this, here's what this has allowed me to do, is I can pretty immediately, over the course of a 5-minute conversation, understand if somebody is going to be a good fit for me, if the project is a good fit for me, what the complexity is too, which is important, by the way, because before you quote your prices, you kind of need to know a little bit about each type of thing that you're going to be creating for them, each one of the details. Does it have a background? How complex of a background are you thinking for that? You need to have that type of a conversation. Number 2 is that this also allows me to vet the people that I think are going to suck to work with. I can tell from, again, a 5-minute conversation, that's all it's going to take from your life here, if that person is going to be a pain, if they are going to be too strict, if they're going to be too rigid, if they are going to be somebody who is just going to be the chancellor and czar of my entire artistic life, do I want to work with that person? Is the project worth it? Are they going to give me some artistic liberties? Because one of the things I always ask is like, hey, do I have some creative liberties up over this? Can I take some creative direction? Can I show you a better version of this if I think of it? Number 3 is that you will be able to spot scammers. Oh my God, so much. Y'all that have been afraid of getting scammed, and tell me if this is you down below, this is the number 1 reason why you're getting scammed. Ask me how many times I've gotten scammed over the course of my career since I started doing this. 0. Over the course of the last 10 years, nobody has ever scammed me. I got scammed once when I was first starting out, and it was before I collected payments, and I also didn't have an in-depth conversation with them before they paid me for it. And because of that, I set myself up. And so if you're entering into that with a client, then you just gotta see it for what it is, because I had to take this accountability pill. It's my fault, and it's your fault too. So don't set yourself up for a miserable experience by not talking to a client before you commit to them and they commit to you. Otherwise, you might be just committing to misery. All right, now on the topic of clients, have you ever gotten a bad client? Have you ever had just a terrible, rotten, no good experience? Somebody that just sucked, they drained your creative soul, they just sucked the life right out of you, they made you question whether or not you ever wanted to do this again. First and foremost, let me just say that that's not uncommon for that to happen sometimes. But if it's happening all the time, I'm going to say you're probably doing more than one of the things that we're talking about in this video today. If this is you, friend, I've had that shared experience. Look, one of my worst clients I've ever had, I've not had a bad client in a long time, but one of the worst ones I ever had when I was first getting established was I did a book cover for somebody, and I was not paid that much. I was only paid like $150, which, just to be honest with you, is about a tenth of what you should get paid to do a commercial book cover. And this person was awful. We communicated through email. They would send me nasty toned emails. And then this brings me into this next practice, which is that if you have a bad client, you should absolutely never work with them again. I see so many artists, again, if you're coming from a place of absolute desperation, you are not going to get out of that by just taking anybody regardless of circumstance. Like, put it in the circumstance of a relationship. Do you think that you're going to be happier in a relationship by staying with a toxic person who's abusive to you longer? It doesn't make sense. So why would it make sense in an art commission sense? You know what I mean? And so that just kind of brings into this topic too, is that if you are going to set yourself up for this one, then I would say that you're also going to set yourself up to never want to do this ever again. And that's not what you want, and that's not going to support your business. That's not going to support your goals, is it? But now, funny thing about my example is that client also contacted me 3 years later wanting to do another one. So what did I do? Well, I went ahead, and it was for a smaller job, and I quoted him 4 times what my original pricing was. Joke's on them. Now I got way better clients than them because of that too. So the thing too that you also need to realize is that oftentimes your clients right now are not the clients that are going to support you into the future. And if you're thinking that your client pool that you currently have right now, that really amazing little client pool who can't pay you very well, is going to support you into making an actual sustainable amount of money, they won't. They're bad clients too. They're just wrapped in sheep's clothing. Leading into this clip, I just need to let you know that your first priority all the time, when you're going to be taking commissions, when you're going to be freelancing, is 100% customer service and communication. You should be on top of all of those. You really want to have a great attitude of customer service. You want to be kind. You want to be professional. You want to be very communicative. Don't be the person that ghosts people. That all being said though, here's some weird requests that I see all of the time. And it's actually something that like completely floors me, okay? And this leads into when clients want too much from you. They want too many updates. They want too much communication. They expect you to just go ahead and just do anything they want whenever they want to. And so sometimes what this kind of envelops itself into, and I'll give you a really extreme example of this one in a second, but I've had clients that will literally reach out to me on some random day and be like, how's it going? What's it look like? How's the update? And I'm like, that's not what we discussed. So like, for example, I set myself up, and I'm going to advise you right now, if you have clients that are doing this for you, it's just because you didn't establish expectations, because you have not been communicative. And so one of the things that I've been doing for a very long time is that I tell clients when to expect my updates. Like, hey, you'll get my update on Tuesday night. You'll get my update by Sunday night. Well, Sunday night might be like 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's still okay. I've still fulfilled that role. I've still done that. And so because of that, my friend, I want to advise you on this one. You got to set yourself up for a standard, and you have to establish those expectations for when it will be. If they want to go ahead and get something more than that, then all you need to do is tell them that it's not worth showing off right now. It's kind of in a weird phase. I'm going to definitely give you a great update. Just be patient with me, all right, my friend? If you tell them that, they'll definitely back off, and it's a nice professional way to go ahead and handle that. But I've also seen this done in a really weird way, and I can't even believe that this is a thing, but I've seen people who demand and request that an artist ready for this, live stream the entire creative performance. And for me, I'm like, that is horrible. I would never do that. I don't care if you paid me $5,000. I would never have somebody there live with me nitpicking and watching like a hawk, like just me under surveillance while I'm supposed to be creating. That's awful. I'll just tell you this, like even while you're watching this video, I'm also kind of like tripped up a little bit at the fact that like I'm recording this and I know that people are watching me. Like I'm just thinking about this, and this is something that I kind of have to work with. I have to push myself through a little bit. I have to try and just put it outside of my mind and just focus on the work so I can do it. But I'm always cognizant of the fact like, oh my God, somebody's watching my video. Somebody's watching my process. Oh my God, what are they gonna think about this? What are they gonna think about that? And I just put this into a client perspective. I'm like, do I want that invading my process? No, because you and I both know this, don't we, friend? There's so many ugly phases of artwork, right? And do you really want somebody to only be there at the ugliest phases, or do you want to only show them the parts that they actually need to pay attention to and that they will like? Because for me, there's so many parts of my artistic process that I don't really want anybody to see, and the client doesn't need to either. So if they're asking too much, if they're demanding too much of you, or too many updates, you don't have to drop everything. You don't have to accommodate them. You just have to set that expectation of when they're gonna see, what they're gonna see, and you can feel free to draw the line on it. But again, you wouldn't know that unless you had a conversation first. See how that works? Now, there's a lot of big topics of conversation that I'm sure you've seen, I'm sure you've heard, and there's a lot of chatter about some things that I just want to be honest with you. It's not real. There are so many cruel lies and just honest takes that people don't tell you about commissions. There are people that inflate this into saying things like, oh yeah, this is a full-time income for me. No, it's not. And what that does is it sets you up for false expectations. And one of the things I picked up on is that people don't tell you that outright, and that's a big problem for me, and that's not setting you up for success. And to help you out with that, I made a video all about these right here, so go ahead and check out the cruel lies about our commissions no one else will tell you. And hey, if this helped you, please share it with somebody that you know. Thanks so much, and see you next time.